I would like to touch on the idea or sense of imperviousness. Imagine a ball and it's not permeable, it's not penetratable, its wholeness is intact. And the opposite of that is non wholeness, or the intactness of the wholeness being compromised, meaning the integrity or intactness of it is not in fullness. There is leaking, there is permeability, there is fracturedness, you can say. And so the two sides of the coin here is imperviousness and permeability, or leakiness, you can say. The analogy would be, imagine, like, let's say a small puddle of, a certain kind of liquid. And if you put your finger on it, the liquid separates. And so you can say there is fragmentation, there is fracturedness. And when you remove, you step back, you remove your injection of your finger in it, the puddle of liquid forms back. The previously separated parts of the liquid comes back together, forming once again into the whole. So that's the analogy. As I've mentioned in my previous recordings, it's about stepping back and uncolonizing, let's say, uninsertion, right? Allowing for it be, to be in its fullness, to be in its wholeness. And the insertion of a lack only causes chaos, only causes static, only causes, fragmentedness. And so imagine like a ball, and when you insert, let's say, your hand in there, it becomes disintegrated. There would be space, you can say, between the parts of the ball, right? And when you withdraw your hand, the ball forms back as a whole, right? So when there is the insertion of your hand, since it disperses, right, the parts of the ball disperses, now there is the leakage, because you can say that you've created holes in it, holes. There's now space between the parts of the ball, and since there are now holes, holes, there is a kind of leaking, a kind of quote unquote bleeding out. When you poke your skin, blood comes out. There is a tear, or there's a damage, or there's a compromise in the integrity of the skin. And there is, again, there's the bleeding, there is leaking, right? Another image that comes to mind is the Pandora's box. When it was opened, all kinds of darkness came out. All the quote unquote nasty stuff came out. Another way to put it is that, let's say, when you're outside the ball, you can see the ball, right? The ball is in wholeness. And when you step inside it, you break it, you disperse it. And so this is another application of our power. When you are in this stepped back place and you're in recognition of the quote unquote impervious whole, and that it's, you can say, invincible, right? It's impenetrable, it's impermeable, basically, then you get to enjoy that or get the benefit of that. And when you are in forward orientation, when you're in colonization or injecting, then that's the time it's bleeding out. And that's the thing. Only you can cause that dispersion. Only you can cause that fracturing of the whole. It's not outside. It's not like caused by others or the external world. It's the orientation, or it's you buying into whatever is offered to you from the external world, and engaging, the fractured side of the coin, you can say. Only you can engage the quote unquote impaired integrity orientation or configuration. So you can say that the two sides of the coin here is also upkeep and maintenance of the integrity, the honoring of it, and the other side of the coin being destruction, breaking, dishonoring of the integrity. Wholeness, constructedness, right? And destroyedness, destruction. And again, with the image of the compromised ball, with the destroyed ball, then now there's the leaking, right? There's the leaking of the insides. There's the leaking of power. There's the leaking of energy, of currency. And so that's the choice that we have here, is to engage, you could say, the destroyed version, or being that orientation of destruction, in that fracturedness, or in honoring of wholeness, being in this stepped back place, allowing the ball to have its formation, to have its wholeness, and not injecting yourself in it and destroying it in the process, not intruding upon it, allowing it to come together, allowing it its wholeness, allowing it its fullness, its yesness. And that's the thing, when you're in this stepped back position, then what you get to enjoy is the imperviousness of it, is the, you can say, invincibility of it. The other side of the coin, the other choice, is permeability, powerlessness, breakability, you can say. The opposite of invincibility, right? And this also applies to my previous video regarding adulthood and infantilism. Isn't it that when we are a child and immature, we are very permeable, We are very influenceable. We are, you can say, we are controllable, right? We are dependent. We are conditionable, you can say. We haven't grown into our fullness, and our brains haven't grown into its full maturity, to its full capacity. There's a lack of solidity, We are like sponges, right? Very permeable. We just absorb everything that's around us. We are conditioned and influenced and affected by the thoughts and ideas and beliefs and brainwashings, right, around us. We are still porous, We're like a porous sponge, and we're very swayable, right? And as an adult, it's the opposite side of the coin. Having independence, having your own autonomy. You have grown into your full flesh. You have come into your fullness. You've come into, fulfilledness. You now have a mature brain capacity and capacity for having a backbone, having your own decision, your own critical thinking, your own wholeness, basically, your own selfness, right? And so the adult is akin to, or is in association with, the impermeable ball, with the impermeable wholeness, while the infant can be associated to the porous sponge. And so we have the choice to recognize the fullness, the impermeable, impervious wholeness or fullness, or keep on engaging the dependent infantilism. and that's the effect that we get. It's like if there's the experience of being, let's say, affected or buying into negativity, the case in fact is that it's because we're the ones who decided to, you can say, dishonor the side of the coin of wholeness and abandoned it for the fracturedness, the breaking of it, the breaching of it. It's kind of like it's up to us to dishonor, you can say, to disrespect, to, you can say, to betray the quality of adulthood and buy into or engage infantilism. It's like a turning away. Instead of recognizing the maintaining of it or the upholding of it, there is the engaging or giving, you could say, currency to the destruction of it, the impairment of it. It's kind of like if you recognize the impermeability of it, then that'll be the effect that you get. You get to enjoy the impermeability of it, the imperviousness of it. If you recognize or if you charge or you give mileage to the affectability of it or the permeability of it or the destroyability of it, well, then that's the effect that you get. You'll get the experience of being dependent on the external forces. And when the external forces go against that idea or that quality, well, then you experience that. It's as if there's a loss of it, or there's the damage, or there's a diminishment towards it. As if it is, as if it was. But it's just because you bought into or you dishonor, you can say, the quality of impermeability and went with the quality of destructibility. There was the, you can say, quote unquote, the betrayal of wholeness and going with the quality of fragmentedness or fracturedness and being at the mercy, again, infantilism, being at the mercy of the external world. The external world says this, you go along with it. There's some external force that throws negativity towards you, well, then you go along with it. There's a lack of spine, right? There's a lack of integrity. Integrity meaning there's the, you can say, again, permeability of the integrity. That's what you are honoring at that time. The permeability of something of a certain quality, the perviousness of it. And so this brings us back again to the idea of commitment, devotion, or allegiance. Because again, what the external world offers is offer. It's an offering. It's always up to you to give consent. It's always up to you to buy into. It's always up to you to collude, to agree, to join in, right? And what I noticed with this honoring of the integrity or the wholeness, there's the sense of like sticking with, again, the idea of commitment or devotion or non-betrayal, non-abandonment, basically. There is the sticking with, in the face of an offer, right? An offer that came from whatever external element and whatever idea they're trying to make you give into, right? Make you consent to. It's sticking with wholeness, It's sticking with the impervious wholeness of that quality of your preference. And that's what I also notice in this human earth experience. It's like a practice of sticking with, because you're always offered with all kinds of stuff, right? All kinds of ideas. The things that you encounter, societal ideas, communications or interactions that sort of suggest something to you. It's like opportunities or exercise of non-breaching, of non-abandonment, non-breaking, non-betrayal, non-betrayal of yourself, of your truth, of the true nature quality of your preference, you know? It's like choosing being with something, like being a devotee or a follower or disciple. Though these words can be tricky because they're very old fashioned, right? The mind can have all kinds of interpretation with the word disciple or follower or devotee. It goes into images of monasteries and temples and cults, right? And whatnot. But you can say it's a personal temple, you know, a personal kind of discipleship without the traditional way of having an external guru and following him around until death, right? It's having your own, you know. And basically, it's just also being practical, it's also being rational, recognizing adultness is of benefit. And so you go with that, right? Like, let's say person A is a mature adult and person B is a infantilized, immature, messy person with a fragile ego and all that. Well, who will you go with? Of course, person A, right? That's like, that's just being rational. There is a desire to spend time with person A compared to with person B, right? You choose, right? You choose to be with person A because person A emits the transmission of wholeness. And so you can say it's common sense or it's rational to go with the person A, right? So, in the same way, the two sides of the coin, wholeness and fracturedness, adult, infant, imperviousness and permeability, it's recognizing which side is of benefit. You can notice the effect, right? You can notice the effect when you are in honoring of wholeness. What you get is this. And when you betray that, or when you breach that and go with fragmentedness, permeability, infantilism, you get that effect, right? So, you know, from a rational perspective, you can actually compare. You can compare which one benefits you. And if breaching or breaking wholeness, you discover that it doesn't benefit you and actually it only causes suffering, well, then you honor, right? You now step back and you honor the altar. You stop desecrating it. You cease the injection. You cease the intrusion, the colonization, and be in discipleship or devotion instead of betrayal and destruction of it. As I've mentioned in my previous recording, spiritual teachings and pointers are described from different perspectives, from different angles. And so that's one way to describe it from an angle. A different angle is that, again, it's already the case. Meaning, imperviousness is already the case. Wholeness and imperviousness is already the case because content is impervious to emptiness. Emptiness cannot get in there. Emptiness cannot really, inject itself in content, right? It's emptiness, that is its quality. The background cannot, quote unquote, intrude upon the foreground because it's the background. If it can intrude in the foreground, well, then it's not anymore the background. And so in that sense, or from that angle, wholeness and imperviousness, impermeability, impenetrability, it's already the case in fact. And so when we recognize this, quote unquote, this home base as emptiness, then it's already the case. Content, or whatever quality, whatever true nature quality or broadcast or construct, right? That's already how we relate with it as emptiness. As emptiness, there is already, quote unquote, respecting of its space. There's already the recognition of its self-standing autonomy, you can say. There's already the non-dishonoring of its isness, right? Of its wholeness, of its integrity. Because emptiness cannot step in there, you know? Again, that is its quality. It cannot shatter, it cannot break it, it cannot fracture it, precisely because it's emptiness. Emptiness remains empty. It's always and already in respecting of the wholeness. It's always and already in recognition of the impervious isness of something or of a certain quality. That's already its mechanism, basically. And so from this perspective, from this angle, let's say if there's a sense of diminishment or there's a sense of disempowerment, well, then what's happening is that there is the giving mileage or giving stage. There is, quote unquote, honoring of the isness or wholeness of disempowerment. If that is the one being entertained, well, then the isness, right, the wholeness of disempowerment is the one, being given stage to. Its impervious wholeness is the one being, being fed, being given currency to. And so this again brings us back to the idea of commitment or non-abandonment. It's non-abandoning the home base, non-neglecting or non-disrecognition of it, non-exclusion of it. It's like the root, right? Home base. So essentially, emptiness, since it's empty, it's quote unquote already doing that. It's already in non-injection, non-intrusion, non-colonization of content. Again, content or qualities or constructs are already impervious, are already impermeable to emptiness, because emptiness is not content, right? And so, quote unquote, automatically, emptiness is already in honoring, it's already in acknowledging of the impervious, impermeable quality of qualities, of the eternalness or the invincibility, let's say, of content.